appreciate you coming out to join us. Tonight we are going to talk about how we can be a vibration of calm during this time of pandemic. We want to send a vibration of calm through our homes. We want to send it through our church, and we want to be that calmness for our kids, for our other family members, for our neighbors, for our friends, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. I am Sherri Klingensmith, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. I have been working in the mental health field for 20 years, and that's crazy to say that, but it has been 20 years. The majority of my experience has been at Presley Ridge. Presley Ridge is a very large organization, so I have got the fun to work in a number of our different programs. I've gotten to work at our Presley Ridge Day School in Pittsburgh, and I've got to work in our residential program called Home Places in the Pittsburgh area as well. And I'm currently the director of our outpatient program in the Pittsburgh area, but I also am the outpatient service line lead. So I oversee all of our outpatient services all across our 6 different states. So I love what I do, and I love working with the clients and the families and the therapists every day that I work. So, but that's not why I'm doing this training. I'm doing this training because, not just because I'm a therapist, I'm doing it because I'm a neighbor, I'm a daughter, I am a sister, I'm an aunt, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher of my own children right now. It is like, I am many things, and I'm sure you could sit down and come up with your own list of all the things that you are right now. And so in all of these different roles of my life since March 16th, 2020, I have been very aware of what has been happening around me. And I've really been aware of how people are responding differently and how people are functioning a little bit differently. And how should I respond to that? If I respond this way, is that going to be helpful for that person? Or if I respond this way, is that going to be helpful for my son or daughter? So I've just been really aware since March and walking into this pandemic, a situation that I've never been in before, and what can I do to really create a sense of calm around me, my family, my neighbors, my workplace, my church. And that's what I want to share with you guys today. So we have a very simple learning objective. I'm not burying us with anything more than one thing, because we don't want there to be a lot of anxiety about learning too much. So we're going to learn how to provide the sense of calm to our kids, to our families, to if you're in the mental health field, your clients, to yourself, to the people that we work with, and why it's important. Okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about, a little bit of brain science, so just stick with me for a minute. This is my only piece of brain science for today. So a mirror neuron. Has anybody ever heard of a mirror neuron? No? Okay. All right, so mirror neurons in our brains, okay, these neurons, they're neurons that fire when both animal acts and when animal observes the same action performed. So thus they mirror each other, okay? So if I walk up to Angie and I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, what are you gonna have? What kind of a reaction are you gonna have?
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Right? So she's gonna want to mirror that same behavior back at me. So, but if I came up to Angie and I was like, Angie, you know what, can you really help me with something? We have a kid that just peed their pants back in the nursery. And then her response to me is going to be a little bit different, right? If I'm in a panic mode, somebody's going to mirror that panic mode then they're going to mirror that same less heightened behavior as well. So we're going to watch this little video about mirror neurons.
Let me take you back to the early 1990s. Sleepy little laboratory in Parma, Italy, and scientists had a MRI brain scanning machine on a macaque monkey as the macaque monkey was trying to open up a nut. They wanted to see how the neurons would light up. So the monkey's trying to open up the nut, the neurons light up, and just by serendipity, and this is how science sometimes happens, a human being walked in the laboratory, I don't know if it was by mistake, and he was hungry, he saw the nuts and opened up one of the nuts and tried to crack it open. The macaque monkey was totally shocked because who was this invader in his laboratory? And he didn't move. He just gazed at this human trying to open up the nut, just like he had done a few seconds earlier. And then the scientist looked at the MRI brain scan, and the same exact neurons were lighting up when he observed the human being opening the nut as when the monkey opened the nut. And the scientists had not a clue as to what this was. They thought the MRI machine had broken. They then began to put MRI brain scanning machines on other primates, especially chimpanzees with our big neocortex. Then they went to humans, and what they found over and over again is something called mirror neurons. And that is that we are apparently soft-wired, some of the primates, all humans. We suspect elephants. We're not sure about dolphins and dogs. We've just begun. But all humans are soft-wired with mirror neurons so that if I'm observing you, your anger, your frustration, your sense of rejection, your joy, whatever it is, and I can feel what you're doing, the same neurons will light up in me as if I'm having that experience myself. Now, this isn't all that unusual. We know if a spider goes up someone's arm, and I'm observing it going up your arm, I'm going to get a creepy feeling. We take this for granted, but we are actually soft-wired to actually experience another's plight as if we were experiencing ourselves. But mirror neurons are just the beginning of a whole range of research going on in neuropsychology and brain research and in child development that suggests that we are actually soft-wired, not for aggression and violence and self-interest and utilitarianism, that we are actually soft-wired for sociability, attachment, as John Bowlby might have said, affection, companionship, and that the first drive is the drive to actually belong. It's an empathic drive.
So let's hold on to the thought of what he said at the end, because we're going to talk about that later. We are all social beings, and we all have a want to belong, okay? Let's remember that, because we're going to come back to that later. But anyway, so talking about mirror neurons. So mirror neurons is just the way that our brains are wired to function. I love the spider example that he gives, you know, a spider crawling up your arm, you know, we're all just going to be like, what's going on? So, we need to be aware of our mirror neurons and that they're just a way that we react naturally during this time. Why? Because if we're mirroring these negative emotions all the time to the people that we are around, then they're going to be mirroring back negative emotions and feeling that from us. So right now there's lots of stress, there's lots of anxiety, there's lots of worry going on. For good reasons, right? There's lots of good reasons. People are worried that they're not going to have a job tomorrow. People are worried they're not going to have money to put food on their tables. Kids are worried and families are worried about what school is going to continue to look like as the year progresses. In regards to resources, are there enough resources available? Rather it be food, rather it be clothing. There's lots of different resources out there that folks are worrying about. In general, people worrying about going out because of getting sick, or maybe just anxiety has taken over and they just cannot get themselves to get out and utilize the safety precautions that are in place. And then there's some people that are legitimately ill and sick, and for safety reasons, they can't leave their house. So that's a whole nother set of confusion for folks. So all of these feelings and all of these emotions, all of this stress, all of this anxiety, all of this worry at this time during this pandemic is real. We're all feeling it. Our kids are feeling it. Our neighbors are feeling it. The people walking around this church are feeling it. So what do we do as adults? We need to try to figure out how to manage these emotions that we're having so that we're not mirroring these negative reactions, this stress and this anxiety on people all day long, especially our children. So we're going to talk about how we're going to do that, because we need our healthy outlets, right? Because it's unrealistic that we are like superhuman adults, that we have to like not complain or not gripe about something, right? So we got that taken care of. I got some ideas for that. But we need to make sure, for sure, we are not pushing these negative things off onto our kids. So what we want to do, we want to be a mirror of calm in the storm for our kids, for our family, and for students that we work with. So the question of the day is, we want to figure out, how do we send a vibration of calm through our house, through the school, through our church, and through counseling sessions, through anywhere else. You could put another item on that if there's something else that you're involved in, at work, whatever you would want to fill in the blank. It will work. It'll fit in. So we're going to break this down. So number one is we're going to look at the basics. So Maslow, if anybody ever had psychology or sociology 101, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he's going to tell us at the very bottom of this triangle is our basic needs. You see water, food, shelter, sleep, okay? If our basic needs are not being taken care of, ours, meaning mine and yours, our kids, students, whomever, if they're not being taken care of, we're not going to be able to do anything else. We're not going to be able to manage our anxiety. We're not going to be able to be good parents. We're not going to be able to be good grandparents. We're not going to be able to be good pastors. We're not going to be good anything because we're not taking care of our basics, okay? That's why this one is number one. So, are you eating? Do you have food at your house to eat? There are some people that just don't have the means to get the food right now. So are we helping them get to those resources, which we're going to talk about that next too. So food. And then if you do have food at the house, do the kids have the ability to make it? I'm working all day at home on my computer in meetings, and here my kids are doing their online school, coming out saying, I need to eat lunch. And I'm sitting there in a meeting. Do you think I can get up and go make them lunch? I can't. So there was one day where I told my son, I said, I'm going to be in a meeting all day long. What are you going to have for lunch tomorrow? My daughter can cook her own food. My son, he needs a little bit more assistance. He's like, can you just make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the morning? I said, you could really make your own peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He's like, yeah, but it's better when you make it. Okay, that's fine. So I packed his lunch for him, even though he was at home doing school, right? I packed a lunch for him, and it was sitting on the counter. So when he was ready to eat, he had a healthy lunch packed and ready to go that he could just take out and eat, okay? So he wasn't sitting there pulling a bag of Doritos out of the cupboard and eating Doritos for his lunch that day or any day. So, thinking about those things, younger kids are at home by themselves maybe, or at home having to fend for themselves for food. So not only do they have food, but do they have the means to prepare some of these items? And if not, are we helping parents to kind of think about, or are we thinking about ways to kind of pack lunch touches, just like if we were going to send them to school with a lunch. So food, our bellies need to be happy for us to be fueled. Sleep is the other really important. I get cranky whenever I don't get sleep. I don't know about you guys, but I'm the cranky one whenever I don't get sleep. So we really need to be thinking about our own and thinking about our kids, and thinking about asking people, if they're generally just feeling like blah, how are you sleeping at night? Are you able to get some rest? Are you up worrying about things? I know there's a lot of people that are taking care of, maybe other older adult kids that moved out and went to college, and now everybody's back at home and doing online school, and kids that didn't live in the house now are, and guess what? They don't have bedrooms anymore. So kids are just sleeping wherever, and the kids who got taken over are now trying to do school with siblings in the rooms that used to not live there. So, sleeping we might have taken for granted, but their sleeping habits might have changed just because other people are in the home, or maybe you're caring for a grandparent who got ill or can't care for themselves, or something like that. So sleeping patterns could definitely change during the pandemic. So we want to make sure we're checking in on that. Are they sticking to a routine sleep schedule, getting to bed at the same time every night, getting up at the same time every day? Those kind of things are super important to our mental health. Some other basics is our health. I know a lot of like dentists and eye vision places were closed down for a little while or had limited hours. For the most part, those are back up and running, so are people rescheduling those appointments if they had appointments scheduled, getting back on the schedule? Or are people having some fears and anxieties about going back into a doctor's office right now because of the traffic going in and out? And, how do we support each other around that and being able to take care of our own physical health? Why is that important? If you go to your regular PCP well visit check and you find out that maybe your B12 is low, or your vitamin D is low, or maybe you have some cholesterol or thyroid issues, that might be just this rolling effect of many other things. And if you're handling your physical health, then you're going to help with your mental health, and you're going to help with all that anxiety and that stress that you're having. It's cyclical. Making sure that we're exercising, stretching, playing, having fun, being active. So important for our bodies. I said I would talk about resources later, and here it is. We need to be reaching out to people and giving them resources if they don't have them. There's lots of people out there that maybe didn't need a food bank or a place where maybe they could get some clothing for free before, but maybe they do now. So maybe if you hear somebody talking about it, or if you're in need, reach out and ask. Don't be afraid to ask those questions of people and get those answers. Also for mental health services and substance use services, so easy to access right now. We are allowed to do telehealth. Is all you need to be able to do is get on a device, and we can easily provide service in your own home. We were never really able to do that at such an easy capacity that we are right now. So easier to get services right now than before. If you have transportation issues, or if you're sitting at home with your kids while they're at school, online, and you don't have the ability to get out. So those are just some of the basics that are super important. And if the circle is broken at one of the basics, there's no need to move any further in what I'm going to say to you. So you need to make sure that the basics are taken care of for you or your child or whomever it is that you're thinking about before you try to move any further and trying to support this vibration of calm moving anywhere. Okay? So back to our question of the day, how are we going to send this vibration of calm through our house, our school, our church, our workplace, whatever you want to put in that blank. So number one, we talked about checking in on the basics. Number two is providing a foundation. So what does that mean, providing a foundation? When I talk about providing a foundation, I'm talking about structure, routine, schedule. This is so important for us and our kids and our family and our church and our schools. Predictability comes with a schedule and routine and structure. And I can't say how much that predictability helps to decrease worry and anxiety for all of us. And if we're less worried and we're less anxious, we're going to be more calm. And we're going to be able to send that vibration of calm soaring through. So structure, rather it's using a calendar, that's visual for the family. Rather each individual kid needs some sort of a structured calendar that's visual, whatever works for you and the family. For routines, develop a routine and stick to it. It might sound easy, but it's hard, I know, because I have kids. And we are sticklers at our bedtime routine, and we always have been. And I think some people think we're crazy because of the time our kids go to bed at 8:30, and that's their bedtime. And it's very rare that we let them stay up past, because my son doesn't sleep in. He could stay up until 10 o'clock at night, but he would always be awake at 6:30 in the morning. So who's cranky pants then the next day is my son. And it's because we would let him stay up. And he has been like that his entire life. So he's just a much happier kid, and we're much happier as parents if we just stick to the sleeping routine. So we have our little routine that we do it in the evening, and we have our routine in the morning, and it's predictable. They know what to expect, and it changes every so often, right? We had a summer routine, we have a school routine, we have what happens on the weekend, when the TV needs to be shut off, when chores need to be done, and all of this, but it's predictable, and they know who needs to do what and when. So, very important. With a routine, you can always make a visual list, and I'll show some examples here in a minute. But, for my kids, I'll make a list of things that they need to do, and that way, instead of them thinking that I'm the nagging parent, I'll just say, go look at your list. I don't need to tell you, just go look at your list. And they'll go over there and they'll stare at it. They'll be like, I did this, I did this, I did this. Oh, I need to do this. And they'll go run and do it in the morning. So, how this relates to work or your church or yourself is the same thing. If you're starting your day at work with the same routine in mind, maybe you need to check all your emails first thing in the morning before you start into your meetings. Or, maybe whenever you get to your lunchtime, you actually need to take a lunchtime, which is a my issue sort of thing. I need to make sure I take lunch instead of eat lunch and work at the same time. So that's something I'm working on with my own schedule, to actually schedule a lunch break. So, all of these things are so important for us, and if we're not conscious of them, they won't happen. So I think that's the thing. It sounds easy, but it's easy to not do as well. So why is structure, routine, and schedule important? So just, if you read through this, it just makes so much sense. So it provides predictability. When predictability comes, less anxiety happens, right? With less anxiety comes a kid, a student, and an adult, whomever, has less stress about the unknown. And with more knowledge about the unknown, there's a plan for what's coming next. If I know what's coming next, I'm going to be so much more calm about what's going to happen, because I know. So there's always times of unpredictability and just fun things that happen in life. But when we're thinking about the time that we're living in right now, there's a lot of unknowns. So we need to grab a hold of and provide some structure and routine around what we can, because there's a whole lot that we don't have control of. So just think about it from that perspective. So just some example charts that we've used in my house over the years. Everybody's got a chore chart. Again, I don't have to nag at them about or try to remember. It's just go look on the wall, see what your chore is for today, and do it. This is one that we have recreated. I didn't put the new one on here because I didn't have it saved on my computer while I was working on the PowerPoint. But so this was whenever my son was a little bit younger and he was doing preschool. So we had it was very visual for him. He was having a hard time with knowing where he was supposed to be on what day. So we had this hanging on his door so he could see where he was supposed to be. So move this to today. And what day am I in school for hybrid school? What day am I at home for school? Same thing we've done now. It's just visually a calendar, because they can kind of function with a bigger space. And I can kind of mark on there Monday, Tuesday, in-person school, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, home. So, and then if they end up being at their grandparents, I'm able to mark that on there. So again, same concept, same idea, but they know it's predictable. Car ride chart, we like to go on long road trips. So if you go on a long road trip, and again, just another good example of predictability. So are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So every hour they can mark an X, and then they can see how many more hours of the trip that there is left instead of asking us every 5 seconds. So just a fun example. A morning list, example that I was talking about. So again, just making sure that they can have something to actually look at that has all of the things on it that they need to do, rather than me standing there harassing them and saying everything. And then this is called COVID, and the schedule's scratched out, crossed over, and just trying to make things work as to what we had marked up. So trying to figure something out in the midst of chaos. So structure, routine, schedule is important. For the kids, it's important for us. It's important for us to know. I try to do the same thing for work in my staff meetings. I have the same routine. We go through our meeting in the same way. I always try to do just some fun highlights. Does somebody have something fun that they want to report on? And then we move from there into case consultations, and then any hospitalizations. And then we talk about if there's any evals coming up. And then we go into any new referrals. And then if there's any other updates that anybody has. Like, it's the same routine that we do every Wednesday at my staff meeting. It's predictable. Everybody knows where we're going. Everybody knows what we're going to talk about. So it's important no matter where you're at. So, sending this vibration of calm through the house, through our school, through our church, thinking about the basics, thinking about providing that foundation. And number 3 is being in control of the noise. This is something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about over the last couple of months. And I really want you to stop and think about yourself, and think about your kids, your grandkids, your students. Who do you want your kids, grandkids, whoever you want to put in that spot, who do you want them to get messages from? And then what messages do you want them to hear? You know, and thinking about those two questions, we need to figure out how are we going to be in control of some of this noise. There's noise coming from all over the place right now. We're being immersed with the noise. And so, what do we want them to be hearing? And who do we want them to be hearing it from? So I made my A side and my B side. So my A side is, do I want them to be hearing the messages from the news, social media, people just texting, a group of friends talking? Or do I want them to be getting messages from people like their teachers, counselors, parents, people that are, those sorts of supportive people that are talking, grandparents, people that are talking to them. I'm going to the B side. I don't know about you. But if I hear too much from the A side, sometimes it just drowns me out. Do I feel calm whenever I'm hearing all of the noise from the A side myself? Not at all. Not at all. And so I know my kids are not going to feel that way. I know my friends are not going to feel that way. I know my colleagues at work are not going to feel that way either. So, so how do we do that? How do we stay on the B side? So what kind of messages, thinking about specifically for my kids and what I want to be thinking about myself, especially during this pandemic time, what kind of messages do I want myself to be getting and giving to my kids at this time? I want my kids to know that, you know what, they have strong bodies. And if they get sick, their strong body is just going to try to fight through this. And we're going to pray and we're going to fight through this like any other sickness that they've ever had or they've ever known anybody else to have. Okay? I want them to know and remember that they eat healthy and that helps them to stay strong. And we're going to continue to do that. I want them to know that we're going to get through this together as a family every step of the way. I want them to know that I want to help them to understand anything that they're having questions about. And I want them to know that we need to be smart right now. We need to be smart and we need to be safe. And if that means that we need to wear a mask, then we wear a mask to be able to go shopping or to play soccer or to go to school. We need to sanitize our hands often. We need to wash our hands often. We need to take some different precautions that maybe we haven't ever done before in our lives. But these are things that we're going to do to be safe so that we can do things that we like to do as a family. These are the kind of messages I want my kids to hear. I don't want my kids to hear, this is just a horrible country, and that, other countries gave us this disease, and you're never going to be able to go back to school all this school year, so just forget it. You might as well just get used to doing school online. And you have to wear a mask in school? That must be horrible. How can you breathe in that all day? Do you hear a difference? Do you hear things like that being said? I mean, I know how it feels whenever I hear those kind of messages coming at me, and then I'm trying to reflect a comment back, right? But do our kids know how to balance those kind of messages coming at them? No. Do all of my friends know how to balance all those messages coming at them? No. Do all my colleagues? No. So we really need to think about, for sure, how are we handling all of this with this noise, and making sure they're hearing the messages that we really want them to be getting. So being present is huge. So I was in a group of people, and my daughter was standing there, and it was a conversation that I was like, we might need to duck out here. I'm not sure where this conversation is going. So I was listening, and I was really paying attention, and I wasn't going to be rude to these other people, but I was very aware that my daughter was there, and I was really feeling like this conversation might be taking a road in the wrong direction for her, for the noise. I didn't want her to hear that noise. Could I have managed that noise on my own? Yeah, and I probably could have helped them to refocus that noise in a very direct way if I wasn't there with her. But I had an escape plan for my daughter's purpose, and we were going to go take a walk because we were up at a park. And so I had this whole plan in my head, and thankfully I didn't need to, and the conversation got turned around. But there have been more than one of those instances where I have had to consciously be aware of a conversation, be aware that I didn't want one of my children to be a part of that conversation, and need to have a plan to walk away from it because they did not need to hear that. So just throwing that thought out there because we need to be aware if it's a conversation that we can't handle, we just need our own escape plan too, right? Because there's sometimes that we just need to leave a conversation too. So some things that we need to be aware of is that when we're thinking about this noise, and we're thinking about these messages that kids are getting and that we're getting, when we think about a kid, the importance of communication. We want to make sure that we're explaining everything we know to them. Just as at work, I did the same thing. At work, every step of our transition back into the building, I explained to them everything I knew, even if it was, this is what I know today at this time. And it might change in an hour, but this is what I know today at this time. Because do you know how much anxiety that relieved from my staff just to know what I knew at that day and minute, okay? The same thing with kids. Even if it's just, this is what I know right now, and it could change in an hour from now or tomorrow, but this is what I know. So giving them the black and white. We know gray, there's lots of gray out there right now. But, I said to my son about soccer, I said, here's the deal. You get to play soccer. I said, you don't have to wear a mask when you're playing soccer, but you're going to have to wear a mask on the sidelines. And whenever we come to watch your games or watch you practice, we do have to wear our masks. I said, that could change. They're still talking about it and still trying to work things out, but I just want you to know that that's what you're going to have to do. Okay. He was fine with it, but I didn't present it, and this is a horrible, nasty thing that you have to wear this mask. So I communicated that, and then I listened to his response. So I want to listen. Does he have any concerns? Does he have questions about it? He actually wanted a different kind of a mask to use, so we talked about whether he could wear a neck guard or not, and whether the league was allowing that. And then validating his concerns and his feelings. I know what it feels to go through a pandemic at my age. I have no idea what my kids are experiencing or what it would be like to be a kid that got chucked out of school in March last year and were 100% homeschooled. And then now this year, it was all a debacle of how the school year was going to begin. And then, just trying to be in good communication with them about what I knew. And that's what I did the whole way through as I was getting emails from the school about what it was going to look like. So I was just listening to them, like, do you have any questions? Do you have any concerns about it? And then while we're listening, and we're communicating with them, we also need to be watching. We need to be watching for signs. signs of loneliness, sadness, confusion, stress, isolation, increased time on devices or gaming system, anxiety, paying attention to these things. If anything's off the norm of what their like typical baseline of who they are, check in with them, talk to them. What's that about? And try to have that communication. So we're going to watch a video, and this individual on the screen, her name is Liv, and my husband, his name's Ryan Klingensmith, and he works for a company, his own company called Shape the Sky, and he actually did an interview with Liv, and you can see it on his on his website. But anyway, so Liv did this video as a school project actually last school year. And so I saw this video, and Ryan and I were watching it, and he reached out to her and did a little interview with her and got to know a little bit about the background of the video and why she did it. And so it's very interesting. But I really think when we talk about kids and isolation and even us as adults, I just think at this time, thinking about just how emotional this time of life is, I think this really just sums it up. So we're going to watch this, and then we'll talk just a little bit more about Liv. watch that, every time I watch that, I just think, wow, right? I mean, it's reality. It's reality right now. So we need to be watching. We need to be listening. We need to be talking to each other, to our kids, to our neighbors, to our friends, because this is the reality of pandemic. Liv did a nice interview with Ryan, my husband. You could read the whole thing if you go to the Shape the Sky website. But like I said, she did it as a school project for last year, and I hope she got 100% on it. And she said that she just wants everybody to know that you're not alone, and that what we're going through right now just feels like it's never going to end, but at some point in time it will. And so I thought that was such a powerful message for her with that video, even though she was like showing, yes, she felt like that, but there's hope there. And I think that that's something that is worth sharing.